The recent passing of the Upstream Petroleum Resources Development Bill by the National Assembly marks a significant development in the regulation of petroleum resources. The bill's primary objective is to separate the oversight of petroleum resources from that of mineral resources, both of which currently fall under the Mineral and Petroleum Resources Development Act. This bill also makes a provision for the establishment of a new state-owned company, which will be responsible for managing the state's participation at 20% carried interest in all petroleum rights. Now, for more on this, we are now joined via Teams by Niall Kramer, CEO of the South African Oil and Gas Alliance. Thank you so much for your time, Niall. Particularly, Niall, we want to talk to you, of course, about the recent passing of the Upstream Petroleum Resources Development Bill by the National Assembly, and, of course, the recent developments that have been made by the Minister in the Presidency not too long ago. Now, I do hope you can hear me. Perhaps let's start with the latest development. Of course, we just heard not too long ago, from Minister Ntshavheni that the bank has, South Africa has picked the Russia's Gazprom Bank as Petro SA's refinery. The minister, of course, mentioning a number of positives in as far as that, particularly from a job creation perspective. Just give us some of your thoughts around this development.
Okay, thank you. The first point is that I'm not the CEO. I'm now retired and I'm operating independently, just for factual accuracy. Regarding the Upstream Petroleum Resource Development Bill, this started way back in 2002, I think, when there was an MPRDA, and that then morphed into, in 2019, an Upstream, the bill we're talking about now, Petroleum Development Bill, which separated petroleum from mining, which is a good thing. That bill is intermingled in people's minds, and I can hear it is intermingled in your questions, with the establishment of a national petroleum company and a couple of other issues. So the two are entirely separate, but there are linkages there. So regarding the Upstream Petroleum Development Bill, I see that it attempts to do two things. One, it is technically, I think, pretty benign. It is attempting to attract investment, to provide certainty. But on the other hand, I see some what I would regard as pretty alarming tendencies, yet again, towards centralized control, the assumption that the state can do more than it has shown it's able to do with other state-owned entities. And the history there is clear for anyone to see. Some of the terms that people were concerned about was what's called carry, whether that's free carry or not, is at 20%. There is there are clauses around black economic empowerment at about 10%, and that number can be reduced. Now, you've got to bear in mind that petroleum and gas exploration is hugely expensive. So for people to come in without a history, without the capital, without the background, is enormously difficult. So there's also a provision that 10% number can go down to 5% in the interests of capital raising. But overall, I think the bill in itself is pretty benign. The issue, if there is going to be one that I see, is that we have waited, not by we, I mean this government has waited so long and had so many meetings and so many talks about talks to get to this point. And the bill is, make no mistake, it's not yet an act. And the devil is going to be in the detail of the committees, the regulatory additions that come to this, the interdepartmental issues around, for example, environmental issues, and then it's going to go through the provinces and their requirements and the local municipalities. And South Africa doesn't have a very deep understanding and any expertise that is deep in oil and gas. We've had through what was Mosgas and now Petro SA some, and there are technical people in there that are really good. But at the kind of scale we're talking about, there is a serious skill shortage. The other alarm that I see is that this has taken so long, and the real beneficiaries are going to be Namibia. A lot of the modelling that was done around what could be in South African deep waters or onshore happened, but nothing was provided in terms of a clear, economically attractive bill. And so the explorers basically went across the border, went to Namibia, and found a more user-friendly environment. And that is a serious worry. And since that happened, there have been big discoveries, reported to be the biggest sub-Saharan gas discoveries by Total, by Exxon, and last week I see Chevron made an announcement that they're also going in to explore in Namibia. And the fields that have been discovered so far are Graf, Venus, and Yonkers, and the basin that is is of so much interest now.
Yeah. Can I come in? Can I come in there now? I mean, I hear you saying that the bill is benign. I mean, some, from some quarters are worried that it is fatally flawed. In fact, the climate question has come into the spotlight. Saying that that the bill is flawed, and of course, it completely disregards the climate emergency and will cause the country to fall foul of our climate change commitments, particularly as we are talking about a COP28 that's currently ongoing. What are your thoughts around that?
I think that kind of criticism casts gas, oil against renewables as if they can't operate together. I think that this has got to be an and equation. Now, nobody is seriously saying we should not have renewables, solar and wind into the future. The issue is the transition. How do we get to that? And there is no question that the serious modelling all shows that we are going to need gas at least until the middle of the century for that transition. So gas is a transition fuel, and it certainly will help us to get towards a more sustainable renewables future. So it's not helpful, and I think it is in fact factually incorrect to cast the one against the other. It's both together. Now, to come back to your question of the climate issue, the amount of CO2 and the emissions that Africa as a whole produces are very, very small compared to what is produced in the US, in the Northern Hemisphere, yet those are developed economies. And I think that we cannot ignore energy poverty, we cannot ignore poverty itself and the jobs issue. And so the kind of investment that this exploration could bring is something that could be of the order of what gold and diamonds did for the country. So the investment is very, very big. If you're looking at $150 million for one deep sea drill, and we're talking about 10 of those, these are massive amounts that are going to be spent. Now, the country needs to get ready for that, and there's an entire value chain in jobs, in businesses, in skills, and that is where the real value is going to come. So I don't think it's an anti-climate activity at all.